Yeah, hi. This is my name is Keith Buchanan, and today I have an incredible guest, Shelly Randall. And what's really kind of neat is that she's actually a neighbor of mine. Now, the reason we kind of put this together is that she has a specialty of exactly how you can divorce correctly. And today's topic is going to be basically the gray divorce and how so many more people are doing that. My divorce that I had many years ago was horrible. However, there were some good things about it. I have my child absolutely, we have even a closer relationship. So there's always something good out of something that's kind of bad. Hi, Shelly, welcome.
Thanks, Keith, for having me.
So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm just glad to be here and have the opportunity to talk to your clientele and your audience about gray divorce and how a certified divorce coach and a certified financial analyst can help make that transition a little easier.
How nice. So let's go ahead and go through that. And then talking point one is why gray divorce is financially different. Can we kind of go into that?
Sure. So, the label gray divorce has been around for a little while. It technically, the definition is getting divorced over 50. Now, as I approach that half century mark myself, I think, gosh, 50 isn't even that old. But there are some key things that are different about divorce in these later years that do make it different from, say, divorcing in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s. Number one being that your kids are much more likely to be fledged from the nest or adults already on their own. So it doesn't mean you don't have any issues around children of divorce, the children of divorce, but you don't have to do a parenting plan. At least here in Washington State, that's only required when your children are age 18 or under or graduated or still in high school. So
Okay.
that's one point.
Oh, okay. So you had a talking point too, and one was the hidden cost of waiting, the confusion.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that no one gets married thinking they're going to get divorced. Or, if you do, you're planning with a prenup. And you then have some things put into place if you do decide to separate down the road. As a side note, I'd be happy to talk about prenups. I wish more couples would create them.
Wow.
But to the point of the delay in why you might delay at this point, you think, well, gosh, we've been married this long. Maybe we should just, keep the status quo as it is. We've built a financial life together. We've gone into our retirement planning with the assumption that there will be the two of us. It can be a lot harder to actually make the separation when you've lived together and had your lives intertwined for so long. I think of divorce as a business. I help with the untangling of the business of divorce, of the marriage. The marriage is a business. You're untangling it. So it's the business of divorce. And I think that when you have held a business together and operated it for that long, it's just that much harder to untangle it.
Wow, that is so true. So true. In the area of a prenup, where would you like to kind of cover that? A little bit later on,
Yeah.
or can we
No,
go on it now?
let me just share my thoughts on that. So, in my intake questionnaire, I even have a question for this. I say, "Do you have a prenup?" And it's a simple yes or no. I so far have had one client out of scores check the box.
Wow.
Now, that's not so I have now come to be surprised if there is a prenup in place. However, my take on this is that since marriage itself is a legal contract between two individuals, again, we don't think of it so much that way, but remember, you had to go to the courthouse or sign your marriage document
Mm-hmm.
in order to register your marriage with the state, especially the government. That is a legal contract. And when folks say, "No, I don't have a prenup," I say, "Well, actually, you do."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? What do you mean?" I say, by default, your prenup is the divorce laws of the state that you are divorcing in.
That's right.
So think about that one. I wish that there were marriage education classes, just like there are parenting classes, right, that are available to you. I know some religious institutions offer some premarital counseling, but I would love to see there be premarital financial counseling for all couples. And one of the things that I think would be helpful, and if you're listening and you're thinking of getting married, or you're even recently married, you can still do what's called a post-nup, a post-nuptial agreement. Nuptial, of course, is referring to the act of the marriage ceremony. Um, but a prenup before or a postnup after, or when there's a big change in your relationship, such as one spouse deciding to stay home and raise kids, which has a big financial implication for the couple. It's really just talking through your values about finances in advance while the relationship is golden, while it's good, while you want it to work and you put all of your best intention into it. The challenge of helping couples untangle the business of their marriage, which is my role, is that already so much trust has been lost and the communication is now very strained and emotions are very high. Negative emotions. And so it's very difficult to have the financial untangling conversations once the divorce has been declared. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, very much so. And you're right. All trust has gone thrown out the window. It's war in some ways. So yes, horrible. So the other stuff is talking three. Let's talk about. You have a title now. You went and studied, and you got a whole bunch of things that you actually are quite. I mean, you're in the know, so to speak. And speaking of that, what is a CDFA, and exactly how does that incorporate and why it matters?
I'll be happy to talk about that. And thank you for the congratulations there, Keith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll answer that by just stepping back a little bit and sharing about how I got into this field. Because there are very few kindergartners that when you ask them what they want to be, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a teacher. Nobody says I want to be a divorce professional, right? No kids think about that. Well, maybe if they're having a challenging divorce at home, but
Yeah.
that was not my
No.
case. My
Yeah.
parents are actually still married, going on 50 plus years. Um, I went through my own divorce though, after I had been in the financial services industry for a number of years. So, like you, or similar to you, Keith, I worked in financial services back when my son did start kindergarten, um, back when he was pretty sure he was going to be as he called it, oh my gosh, he was going to be a solar panelist like his dad, because his dad helped install solar panels.
Oh
So
wow.
I love that term he came up with. He was going to be a solar panelist.
Panelist. Okay.
And I started working for a financial planner here in Port Townsend, and really realized that I loved having conversations about money. My mom was a tax preparer and ran my dad's veterinary business, so as the business manager. So I guess my financial savviness from her. And so it was really a great step to step into this financial planning office. I started to really learn all the rules. I got my FINRA licenses and held them briefly, but decided that wasn't quite the right track for me. So I pivoted into working for a tax firm that did tax preparation and advisory. And that was fantastic. And then COVID came along. And right around this time is when I started realizing that I wanted to do some financial coaching on the side. So I was a personal financial coach first, while I still worked part-time at the accounting firm and was raising my son. And as it turned out, trying to hold my marriage together. But during the COVID era, it broke down. It was complete. It was time for us to part ways. And it was
Wow.
hard to acknowledge that for me at the time. Um, I always say there's two sides of every divorce. It's very rarely is it simultaneously mutual. There's usually one person who's ahead of the other in
Right.
wanting the divorce. And so whether you are the leader or the follower does
Mm-hmm.
make a difference in your story. And so at least for the first few months, I was the follower. I was being led through this process and resisting it. Um,
Okay.
with the help of my therapist, whom I, of course, always want my clients to have a therapist, and
Mm-hmm.
some very good friends, and lots of long walks, and lots of podcasts, and research on everywhere I could find information about the divorce process in Washington State, I came to the conclusion that this was going to be, I wanted it to. It was going to be a good thing for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have one son. He was in middle school at the time. and being taught at home from COVID. It was a very challenging time.
Right.
But my realization as to why I ended up in as a divorce professional myself is because once I started this going through the processes that needed to happen and we were having our financial split conversations, I realized this would be so much harder if I didn't already have this financial savviness, if I didn't have the
Exactly.
background. And so my divorce in the end was pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Well, not straightforward. We had all the things. We had a house that we had to split. We had retirement accounts. He had a
Yeah.
pension. So, and we had a parenting plan to figure out. So it
Right.
was actually not straightforward. But but because of my background and his amicability, we were able to successfully do the financial split and go and establish new households of our own, without a lot of pain and suffering in that regard.
Hmm.
So once I got through our own financial separation and I had a new house, the beautiful house I'm working in now, where my home office is, um, I thought I really want to help other people go through the divorce financial process. So it was a light bulb, and I started doing that in 2022. I first got a certification as a divorce coach. So I used the longest standing program in the country called the Certified Divorce Coach program, and got that at the end of 21. So in 2022, I launched doing that. And then this last year in 2025, I buckled down and did the training and took the test, took the exam to become a certified divorce financial analyst. And that is all a very long way of saying that this credential is kind of the gold standard in the field of divorce finances. And I got it because so many of the other divorce professionals, when I would explain that I was a financially focused divorce coach, which is really how I consider myself,
Right.
they would say, well, do you have the CDFA credentials? And after hearing that again and again, I realized I could do it. And in going through the program, I realized I was already doing a lot of that type of strategy and analysis for my
Exactly.
clients. I just deepened my expertise in it. It was a great program. And there aren't that many of us, though. Like,
Hmm.
if you from Port Townsend, in a 100-mile radius from Port Townsend out here on the Olympic Peninsula, there are only 62 certified divorce financial analysts.
Oh my
Like, that
goodness.
covers all of the Seattle I-5 corridor. So there are not that many. However, we are a very specialized professional, that your attorney might work with, or you could ask your attorney, should we bring in a divorce financial analyst?
Hmm.
Do you have someone that you work with? Because I myself, you might say to your attorney, I don't really understand the finances. And a little tip here, your attorney is generally not going to be a financial expert.
No, that's
And
true.
they certainly are not going to be a financial coach or educator. That is
True.
not what they went to school for. So you are leaning on them for legal counsel and for getting all of your language and documents in impeccable order so that they can be fulfilled. Your orders can and wishes can be fulfilled after the divorce.
Right.
But if you need help with understanding the finances, or if you want to explore some more creative property division splits,
Hmm.
a CDFA is great for that. And there's two different ways that a CDFA can work with you. I'd like to tell your listeners about that too, if I may.
Oh yes, please do.
So, one way is to be an advocate just for you. And that's what I currently do at Shelly Rees Divorce and Financial Coaching and Consulting. I
Hmm.
work with just one individual in the marriage, and I can collaborate with any of your divorce team that you would like. Um, so I'm kind of like your cheerleader, your educator. I'm helping you try to negotiate, like, understand some scenarios, understand the options, and
Hmm.
then negotiate for a financial settlement that will really lead you and support you comfortably into the next chapter of your life
Okay.
with the resources you have available. The second way, though, to use a CDFA is to look for one who works with both couples, right? So then they're going to actually be the neutral, the third party that the two of you can sit down with together
Hmm.
and discuss the financial settlement options and scenarios. Often they will use software to model those scenarios, and then answer your questions about what each of them looks like. They can even run cash flow analyses kind of into the long-term future to say, like, well, if you keep the house, here's what your cash flow looks like for the next 20 to 30 years. If you sell it now and you both split the proceeds, here's what that could look like. So
Okay.
it's like financial planning for the period of divorce. And I always say, divorce is a great time to just figure out your finances. If you haven't in the past, no shame, no blame. But especially as you are embarking on this
Mm-hmm.
new chapter of life as a financially single individual,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a great time to get yourself educated.
For
Yeah,
sure.
figure out what your budget looks like. Maybe just finally understand what that retirement plan means and does, and
Mm-hmm.
understand how Social Security is going to work for you.
That's
Again,
right.
retirement planning and Social Security are actually two areas that affect gray divorce more than others. Because when you're 20,
True.
you're just not thinking about that so much. But by the time you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, I have actually had two clients in their 80s.
Whoa.
So it's not uncommon that late in life, there's still this itch for a different freedom than is had inside the marriage.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So it sounds like um, the other thing was when to hire you. I think we covered that about on that. Oh
I
no.
have something to say about
Oh
that.
please.
The sooner, the better.
Oh I've.
Yeah, we talked a bit about who might look to hire a
That's right.
financial professional, but really, there is a saying in the industry that before you hire an attorney, before you call an attorney, call a coach.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I say, if your main concerns in splitting are financial, then I'm my type of professional is a great first call to make. There's a
Okay.
couple of pluses as well. I would say, gosh, 90% of attorneys charge for their initial consultation,
Yes.
usually at their hourly rate, which in Western Washington, actually, I would say goes anywhere from 350 up to 650 an hour.
Right.
So my rates are much less than that. And I offer a complimentary consultation. So
Oh
your first
wow.
half hour with me is free because I want to meet you. I want to hear about your situation. I want to see if I can help before we go any further. And it's a
I
chance for
see.
you to ask any questions you have of how I operate or my background. I offer that in person if someone is near enough to Port Townsend to meet me on the beach, and we do it as a beach walk. And then I give you
Right.
an hour of my time because it's a win-win.
Yeah. Especially here at the beach.
Yes, meet me at the beach.
Yeah.
But the reason being that there's so many different types of family law attorneys, and when you are getting ready to divorce, I feel very strongly that it's important to first understand what you're looking like, what your financial situation is, what you're looking to
Right.
divide, and how complex it might be before you decide on what type of divorce process you're going to go through. And there's many different permutations of what you can do to get from married to unmarried. If I may, I thought I might outline what some of those are for your listeners.
I do. Please, please do.
The most basic would be a kitchen table divorce, a DIY, do it yourself divorce. It's possible to do that, especially if you no longer have to put a parenting plan together if your kids are adults. The risk there is that one or both of you don't really fully understand some of the intricacies of how to divide, say, a retirement plan or refinance a house if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking to refinance a mortgage. That is actually one of the trickiest things right now to wrap your mind around, is if one spouse wants to stay in the house and the other spouse wants to leave and get their equity paid out or somehow
Wow.
offset by another asset on the balance sheet.
Right.
So we could talk about that more if that's of interest. Because mortgage, how to split a house that has a mortgage is a really big deal and should
Mm.
not be DIY'd. So, in fact, if you are a DIY divorcer and you're not thinking about hiring a CDFA like me, then at minimum, go talk to your mortgage broker or a mortgage broker or several mortgage brokers to get different opinions before you write up your settlement agreement. Because
I
there's
got you.
nothing worse than getting divorced, having the judge, who again is also not a financial expert. So the judge that is just reviewing your paperwork and you
That's
guys
right.
agree and is going to sign off on it,
Right.
they're not looking at it for financial upholdability.
That's
That's
right.
not their job. Um, it would be great if they could. It would be great if that was a part of our court process, but it's simply not. So anyone who's helping you in the Superior Court's office, like fill out the paperwork, they're also not qualified to advise you on whether what you're putting in writing is actually achievable. So one service that I offer is a standalone review of your assets. If you haven't kind of compiled them, I use that as a process to help you build a spreadsheet of your assets and debts, but I also can use it as a review of a settlement scenario that you are thinking of formalizing. So that's just a standalone consultation with me. You can find it on my website. I call it the asset assessment.
Oh my
So
goodness.
so a CDFA is actually great to plug into a DIY divorce. And it also can be less triggering than announcing to your soon to be ex-spouse, I'm hiring an attorney.
Yeah,
So
true.
it can be great to go to your spouse, again, depending on how amicable you can be, but assuming you're DIYing it, you have to talk to each other.
Right.
Because you're not doing this through a third party,
Yeah.
through attorneys. You're not having like, oh, my attorney's going to talk to your attorney.
Yeah.
That's way over at this end of the spectrum, and that's one of the more expensive ways to get divorced. Is if
Yeah.
you can't talk to each other, and you always have to say, well, I'm going to tell my attorney is going to be talking to your attorney about this. Oh my goodness, this is where tens of thousands of dollars can be spent on a legal team. And I'm not saying it's not worth it, because if you can't talk to your spouse, you might have to go that way.
Yeah.
But I try to help my clients keep costs down. And one of the more cost effective professionals you can add to your team is just someone to look over the finances with you. And as
Wow.
early as possible, as I said. So in the middle between the, no divorce team and maybe a very big, expensive, time consuming divorce,
Right.
then there's somewhere in the middle. And mediation is getting that neutral third party to sit down with you and your soon to be ex-spouse and have the conversations. But again, when you hire a neutral mediator, they will not advocate for you. So it's really not their role to
True.
look at, say, a property division scenario that you bring to mediation and say, actually, Keith, that is just not very fair to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
It's not their role to do it. I'm not saying that you'll never find a mediator that does that,
Yeah.
but ethically, they're just supposed to help you come to an agreement. And
Right.
so, if you go to a mediator and you're close to agreement, and then they help you talk through the issues and agree on something, it's always best, if possible, to then include financial and legal counsel before you sign it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you only get one chance to divorce
That's
and to
right.
do it right. It's really, really difficult to go back and change your property settlement after it's filed, after it's final. It's almost and sometimes impossible unless you can prove fraud, like
Right.
your ex-spouse was withholding and didn't disclose an asset.
Right.
So I always say you got to get the financial piece right. Honestly, if there's child support or even spousal support, aka alimony, that is agreed upon, that is one of the easiest things to go and modify in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get too hung up on payments being exchanged, on support payments,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely get it right when you're looking at saying, oh, this much of the retirement plan is going to be uh, transferred over to my name,
Right.
or this is how much equity that you have in the house.
Right. Goodness.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful to
It,
hear
it was very
the
helpful.
spectrum there.
No, I can see the spectrum and I've seen both sides. So, anyways, on talking point five, the power of preparation and patience.
Patience. I get a lot of first consultations with people who say, "Oh, your program is 6 months long, but what if I don't need you? Like, I hear the waiting period in Washington is 90 days. Like, I think we can be divorced in 90 days. What if I don't need all 6 months of your supportive program?" And I say, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but setting expectations, reasonable expectations, is one of my jobs as a divorce coach. Like, that's that piece of my job. And I say it on average takes a year from start to finish for the given couple in the United States to divorce. And if you have children, it's more like 18 months.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's very rare that someone starts the divorce process really ready to have all the pieces tied up in 90 days, which is the statutory waiting period in Washington state.
Right.
And really, that's just put in there so that you don't file for divorce when the night you have a big argument and then like have it approved the next week and then
Yeah.
realize that you are going to make up. So it's
Yeah.
really put in there just as a as a little bit of a buffer so that you can think about it and decide if you want to change your minds, and you can always withdraw a divorce petition. So
Right. I got you.
um, so yeah, if we want to talk though about rushing, um, gosh, rushing can really cost you. And
Right.
when you rush to file, again, hire an attorney, start to try to manipulate the process, especially if this often happens when you are really emotionally hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So rushing is often this like, I just can't do this anymore. And I've been so hurt, maybe betrayed by this other person that I want to push to just be free of them. So that can lead to, I would say, emotionally driven decisions rather than rationally driven
Mm-hmm.
decisions. And I would encourage you to instead slow down. As I sometimes say, you go slow at the beginning to go fast at the end.
I
So
got
if
you.
you can slow down at the beginning and actually take some time with ideally a team, really good friends who are prepared to listen to you, a therapist, a coach, get the lay of the land for what you're moving into as far as what's required for a divorce process. That's what a coach does. Especially if your very first time being divorced, like you don't know what you don't know.
That's
So
true.
rather than rushing headlong, and hiring an attorney as your first step, or starting to really amp up the like walls, the boundaries between you and your ex-spouse, breathe, hire a team, get some supportive consultations going with me, and I can help you prioritize what your first next best steps can be.
I got you.
Yeah. I
Well,
have one more thing to say about the role of an attorney. And I welcome more conversations with attorneys. Maybe you can have a family law attorney on to talk about this, Keith, because attorneys are a key part of your process. I mean, in the end, getting divorced, it's a legal act. You can't get away from that. But divorce is so emotional and it's very financial.
mm-hmm.
And the legal part sometimes is just the bow on the process. It's
Mm-hmm.
for many people, it's just they actually need all the time. Like the reason the divorce takes so long is all of the conversations and
Right.
negotiations they need to have. So having a consultation early on with an attorney can be great because you can understand your rights and responsibilities. I
Mm-hmm.
like that phrase a lot. You want to understand what your legal rights are in the marriage and also what your legal responsibilities are.
Right.
But your attorney is used to having their client tell them what they want and then they fight for it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start engaging with an attorney and you don't really know what you want practically, then it's not a good use of your time and funds to be emotionally processing with your attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and also telling them that you want something that later on, maybe even just a month or two later, you realize, oh, actually, I could probably get away without that.
Right.
So building your team, talking to your financial advisor if you have one
Right.
is really a key part of like all the preparation that you need to do
So true.
before you jump into putting the legal steps in place, in my humble opinion. And of course, every divorce is different too. And I do want to put the caveat in there. If you are in a high conflict relationship, and I think you know what I'm talking about, Keith, you
I
have
do.
seen this.
Yes.
If your spouse is actually not, soon to be ex-spouse is not acting rationally and is really just acting to hurt you, you probably need to engage an attorney sooner because they can help put up some legal protections for you.
Right.
Yeah. So that is a caveat. If there's any domestic violence, if there's any abuse, honestly, if there's substance abuse that is affecting the relationship, those are times that hiring an attorney sooner to put some protections in place is really, really important. And I screen for that in my consultations. And I will often refer to attorneys, say, you really should talk to an attorney first. But if you can kind of get control or handle on some of these things, or if you can actually move out, right? If you can separate into two households,
Right.
circle back to me when you're ready to talk about some of the financial pieces. There also are coaches who are specially trained to help with high conflict divorce cases. I also refer out to those because that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah, I got you. Now, rounding this up on the closing, what would you sum up everything? Talk a little bit more about how people can get a hold of you and things like that. And I also will have that in my notes, but go ahead and speak about that. That would be really nice about that.
Sure. Well, I'm often the first divorce financial professional that someone reaches out to. And I really am honored to be that person. I take that very seriously. It's again, I have a short booking form on my website that you can go to any time of day and night and book a complimentary consultation with me. Usually I have availability that week. And I do note when those are booked because they're time stamped in my system.
Mm-hmm.
Over half of them are booked between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Yes.
because that is the nighttime hours that you finally might have some quiet solitude and peace to be doing this research.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. I want to be available. I don't do phone tag. You can just look at my calendar and find a time that works for you.
Right.
So I invite you to check out my website, which is shellyrees.com or shellyrandall.com. I've got the different permutations of my name. And I invite you to read what's there, read a bit about my process, and I'm so happy to have a complimentary consultation with you. I focus on clients who are divorcing in Washington State, but if you are referred to me, especially by someone who's by a friend or a colleague, I'm happy to have a conversation with you if you're out of state. It's possible there are some pieces of your puzzle that we could work on together, but I try to be as much of a financial expert as I can in the rules of Washington state. And divorce is different in every state. There are very key provisions that are different state to state. And let's not forget that Washington is one of only 9 community property states in the nation. Alaska, you actually can choose to go one way or the other. So that's the 10th. But that does mean that advice you find on the internet, the wise internet, is not always applicable to your state. And so actually, it's great that I have a chance to give this big caveat that while the internet is an amazing tool, while the AI large language models are great tools for doing some brainstorming about how you might start to think about your divorce and your the pieces of your puzzle, do not rely on them as being the final experts. I mean, who's them even, right? Do not rely on the models. Talk to a real person in your jurisdiction.
Right.
Yeah. So if anyone is contemplating divorce, and I know this is the season, we're talking in January. January is styled divorce month, but I actually see that it's more like divorce preparation month because you've got through the holidays, you kind of hung in there one more year. You didn't want to upset the children, even if they're adults now, that it's sometimes easier just to have a chill holiday and suffer through it. But once the new year has started, there's a lot of rhetoric about fresh beginnings, fresh starts, new year, and a lot of people saying, I just can't do this for another year. I hear you. I get you. So now is a great time to start putting some pieces in place to emotionally and financially prepare for divorce. And I have a lead magnet called, it's a technical term. I have a special free gift for you called the 5 money moves you can make to get your divorce moving. So it's actually like 5 private, quiet steps you can take if you are thinking about divorce to get your financial house in order so that you are better prepared when you are ready to start making your bigger moves. And I would be happy to share that with any of your listeners if they just drop me a line through the contact form on my website.
Right.
Or maybe by the time you get there, there will be a pop-up box. So you can sign up for five money moves.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I agree with you. Anyway, thank you so much, Shelly. This has been an absolutely wonderful time, and I look forward to having people contact you and being able to listen and watch this and really learn what you've shared today. Thank you so much, Shelly.
Well, I'll leave with one parting phrase. I always say the rest of your life can be the best of your life. So
Yeah.
if you're in a position where you're really thinking that that has got to be true for you, then I'm not pro divorce. I'm really not. But
Right.
if you are wanting to even explore what the financial implications of divorce in your situation might look like, you can do that without deciding to divorce. So it's not committing you if you have a consultation with a divorce financial expert, if you're even in the contemplation phase. And if it's January and you're thinking you're ready to start planning for this potentiality, then I so encourage you to be brave and bold and reach out, because we only have this one life to live.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. We'll talk later. All right. All
See you
right.
around. See you around the neighborhood.
You gotcha. Take care. Bye bye.